Okay, I've started. Today, we are going to add testing to XNAT Downloader. So that Python package that we worked on last time for adding the Docker file, or we revamped the Docker file so that we could then also add the VS Code remote environment so that we could edit the code more easily and have everything installed on this essentially development Docker environment that we constructed. And I can, lets me share my screen. I'm just going to share my entire screen. So the first thing I'll do is a little bit of a visual feedback from XNAT Downloader. So I'm navigating to the actual repository. So last time, if I hop over to pull requests and look at the closed ones, we can see what we've covered. This was add, let's see. Or maybe I added a little bit extra here. So this was actually something different, I think. So I'll get to that in a second, but let's look at make new. Yes, this is the one that I wanted. So yeah, so last time we changed a few files. We had to change our continuous integration. So that was on Circle CI, which is our continuous integration testing service, which means I give it this specially designed file, and a computer that's located somewhere else can read and interpret this file and build and run code that I tell it to. And then we have reconstructed this Docker file, which builds a version of XNAT Downloader that a user, as in a person that wants to call the command, would use. That call XNAT Downloader and use it just like for their own applications. This is the Docker file that would build that. And we changed from manually specifying it to using a tool called NeuroDocker to build it. And then this Docker file devel is short for development, and I also use NeuroDocker to build this. And it essentially picks up from the container, or the Docker image, I should say, the Docker image that we built with this original Docker file. And then it uses that original image and adds some extra stuff on top of it. And the extra stuff that we're adding on top of it is the remote VS Code. So when we use this remote, when we have this remote VS Code installed, it gives us the ability to start up this Docker, run a Docker container, and point to a URL on our web browser and open up an interactive text editor called VS Code, essentially. And this VS Code editor is just I guess, right now becoming popular and is a favorite of people that are in programming, or it's becoming a favorite. So you can choose different text editors, but I'm preferential towards VS Code. Right? And then how those Docker files, how both of them were built is with this build Docker files bash script, which I have two functions defined here that either generate the Docker file that a user should use, or generate a Docker file, or generate the Docker file that that a developer would want to use so that they could open up VS Code and edit their code. Okay. So that's what we covered last time. And I think there was just, and then I did a couple, I think this is the most important thing of what I did last, outside of YouTube. I added the build of the development Docker container. I added that to the Circle CI continuous integration process. So what a question that Trevor had earlier is, how am I supposed to access these Docker containers that are being built? What this does is that it, by adding all these lines to this circleci.config config.yaml, circleci/config.yaml file, and YAML is just a configuration, just like JSON is. So what I did with all of this YAML is make it so I could push to this website, Docker Hub. Docker Hub. So if we check out Docker Hub, yes, it is on my profile. I have the project called XNAT Downloader. And if I go to tags, then I can see I have this unstable tag, which is pushed to every time that there is something merged into the master branch. See our branches here. So the master branch, then anytime that there's code merged into the master branch, this unstable Docker image is built. And additionally, there's this devel tag that gets built. So this devel tag contains the VS Code installation on the Docker image. So if I'm able to pull this, I purposely didn't set up anything beforehand just so that everyone would see exactly what I would be doing to get set up from, say, nothing. At least I don't think I've pulled this image yet. Try not to. And from the last video, I'm not working on a Windows machine anymore. So that's another difference. Actually, no, I didn't get. I just want to say this. We'll see if this exists. And oh yeah, it looks like I already pulled it. So I am already prepared. So if I wanted to now run this, let's see, I want to cd into my folder in which I keep all of my repositories. And then I want to go into the XNAT downloader directory. And from here, I'm just going to see what branch I'm on. Okay, so I'm not on the master branch. So I'm going to do git checkout master. So I'm on the master branch. Now I want to make sure that my local clone of this repository is up to date with the upstream XNAT downloader. What I mean by upstream is git remote v. So upstream refers to the Neuroimaging U Iowa copy of XNAT downloader. So I'm going to do git pull upstream master. And that gets me up to date. Clear, so I go back up to the top. Okay. And now I want to make a new branch because we are going to try to add pytest. So let's see what are the first things that we run into when we try to add pytest. Or so let's say add pytest. Okay. So next step is to open up and run the Docker image that contains this VS Code. It contains this remotely accessible VS Code. So I'm going to type in docker run, and then I specify -rm just out of habit. Make sure that the Docker, when I spin up this Docker container, it doesn't actually change the Docker image after I quit the running Docker container instance. And I'm going to map the port 8080 from my computer to the port that is on the Docker image or the Docker container that I'll be running. So now whatever the running Docker container, whatever it sends to this port 8080, I will be able to read on my local machine from the port 8080. Again, I could change this to whatever I wanted. I could change this number to be any arbitrary number, but this number has to remain the same because that is how the Docker, that's how the Docker image was built. It was specified to communicate to this port 8080. Okay. And as with before, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves to ask such questions. Okay. The next step, or the next option that I'm specifying is this -v, which stands for volume. And I'm going to mount this variable, which stands for this directory, this folder. I use those words interchangeably. And map it into a spot or a location that's inside the Docker image. So I'm going to say home coder project. And then what's next? And I think I can specify the actual image now. Xnet downloader, devel. Okay. So now if I hit enter, it should run for me if I did it all right. Then I'm going to control click at this URL. It should open up for me. And now this Docker container, this running Docker container, is sending information to this port that I can access via this web address. And I'm not too sure about the difference between 0.0.0 and 127. Looks like they resolved to the same location for me. So I'm not too familiar with the idiosyncrasies of web addresses, but for me at least, in this case, 0.0.0.0 is the same thing as 127.0.0.1. If somebody knows, they can explain it to me. Okay. So now we have VS Code up and running. And next, we want to take a look at what type of tests are we running currently and how can we incorporate that into pytest. Let's see if I even have pytest installed. So let's open up a terminal here and type in, well, let's exit out of this terminal for now, because I don't know what environment I'm using that opened up in the base environment. So let's open up one of the code files and let's see what happens on the bottom here. So it's selected the base. What other choices do I have? Looks like I have access to this Neuro Conda environment. And I think that's the actual one that I wanted to use that has everything installed on it. So I'm going to select that environment. And hopefully that has stuff installed. I'm going to ignore that message. I don't think I have any linter installed. And if I did, it's probably going to show up with a bunch of error messages, or not error messages, but anything that violates the standards of Python code, since this is not written up to standards. All the code here is not written up to standards. Okay, so now with that, let's open up a new terminal, and we see now that I've selected that environment, it automatically activates that neuro conda environment for me. I'll type in Python, then I'll type in import pytest. I'll see. Cool. So looks like the first thing that we need to do actually is change how excuse me, is change how we install the how we create the development Docker file. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to exit from here. I guess exit. This doesn't really matter. I'm just going to close this tab for now. And I'm going to hop over to the issues over here, because I have kind of a rough outline for myself. So I need to add pytest to the development installation. So it looks like I have an example here where I've modified this setup.py file, which is one of the standard files for creating Python packages. So it looks like I have some extras requires here. Okay. So I'm going to put in, or oh, I guess I need to also open this again. And I think when you close it and open it, it essentially resets your connection, which could be a little bit annoying. So open that, it's looking for extensions. It's now chosen the neuro conda environment. And I'm going to navigate to the setup.py file. And it looks like, I believe it was just an extra argument that's called extras. I'm going to look up the requires. I have like the memory of a goldfish. So extras require, yeah. Copy paste. Extras require. And that was, I guess this was supposed to be a dictionary, not a list. That's how it's represented here. With that curly bracket dictionary. Okay. So end that with the dictionary. I don't think we need this one. I don't believe we need to specify a specific version of pytest. So I'm going to remove this syntax, which says I want to install pytest anything within the 5.0.x series. So this will not install pytest 5.1, but it would install pytest 5.0.9 if such a pytest existed. I'm going to say that we don't need that. Okay. Now that should work. And let's see if it actually does work. So I'm in the project and I can type in pip install E. The period here means the current directory. And if I want to install this extra, the special syntax is putting in a square bracket and the name of the extra that I wish to install. So in this case, this is test. Let's see if this works. Do I have permission to do things? Invalid syntax, because I did not put in a comma. Or at least that's what I believe to be the error that I immediately saw. Okay, and that error should, again, slightly unhelpful error message. It's pointing at the line down here because it assumed that the command here ended because I didn't place a comma, and then it tried to interpret the next line independently. Okay. So let's see what this does. It's like it's installing pytest. Good, good, good. All right, looks like it installed everything. So that also means I want to set up the script, the build Docker file, to automatically install pytest every time. So let's see what I'm going to do here. So I want to go into home coder. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter what directory I choose. I'm going to specify a run command, and this run command is going to say pip install E. Again, since the period is represented a directory, I can specify the absolute path as well. So coder project. I can say test. And I think that should work for building this Docker image. Okay. So now I'll give that a run. I'll say, if I put the, yeah, I did, okay. I was looking to see if I put the shebang up here. So I can call this as scripts. I guess I still cannot execute it as a executable. So I'm going to say bash scripts build Docker file. And it takes in an argument to let me know what I want to build. And then I want to do the devel build. And I want to place that into Docker file devel, because that is what it is called here. Okay. And that says that is probably accurate. So I think, yeah, so I don't have Docker installed on this Docker image, somewhat understandably, and I don't know if they allow that to be the case, because otherwise it allows for, I guess, infinite recursion of running Docker on a Docker container on a Docker container. So I'm going to take that in stride, copy this, go to my terminal, do Control-Shift-T to open up a new tab, Control-Shift+++ to make it bigger so everyone can see. And I am in the correct directory still, so I am going to run this in my local terminal. Okay. Nothing means success. I believe, let's see if it would turn up if I click on this. This is having problems updating. At least looks like it's thinking real hard. Reconnect now, please. We can see if that step was, yes, it was included here. So you have that run pip install command. Let's try building this Docker image. And say Docker build tag gcont xnet downloader. I'm going to be unimaginative and say devel2. And then the Docker file that I want to use is not the Docker file. It's called Docker file, but Docker file devel. And then the context in which I am building is the current context, which I'll represent with a period, which stands for this directory. Okay. Then this should hopefully work. Then I'll install VS Code again. And while we're waiting that to finish, let's take a look. We'll multitask a little bit. And we'll take a look if this thing decides to give us a good connection. So please think faster. Reconnect now, please. Okay. So within this config.yaml, we have a couple ways in which we actually call xnet downloader in order to make sure that it works. And it's just a couple calls that we have to xnet downloader. Let's see, we have the bids and non-bids data. So I have the build Docker image, build save, test bids. I think that's the first thing. Yeah. Keep scrolling past it. So test bids, this is the command that we're most interested in. And it looks like it takes in 2 inputs. Takes in this bids underscore test.json, which once you're familiar with the xnet downloader package, this is the file that specifies what information. Oh my gosh. I have to figure out what's up about that contacting or connecting. So this is the file that specifies how we organize or how the so so this file specifies everything that we want xnet downloader to download from, or the specification of the files on this xnet server and what it wants. Let's just open this up to see what I'm talking about. So what we have here is a particular directory that everything that xnet downloader, when it downloads from xnet, it's going to go inside this directory, which is this root directory that specifies out. And then the project, so the name of the folder that it will create if it does not, or the name of the project actually refers to what it's named on the xnet instance. So where the xnet server actually is. And subjects, this is a list of identifiers for the participants that I would like to download from the xnet server. And finally, the actual web address of the server. I'm going to open that link. I should be able to log in as, and this is not great. I just have a testing configuration. Test. Say login, save. And so I have this XNAT download project. So that's what I'm referring to when I look at this XNAT download project. And once it prepares and displays the results, we can see there's two subjects that I could download from. And I just selected the sub -001 participant. And this contains information that is all in bids already that looks bidsy. And this contains all that information. Or downloading information from that bids participant, or from that bids-ish formatted participant. So the next argument that I saw in this config.yaml was this config, and that is what I looked at here, and that contains the information to log into XNAT, this XNAT database, which I am using the word database and server interchangeably. Okay. So let's get back to this YAML. And what we want to do is create a test that calls XNAT downloader and passes in these two files and runs it as a test. So within XNAT downloader, we're going to make a new directory. We're going to call it tests. Okay. And in fact, we are going to wonder how smart the selection here is. I'm going to take all these, and I'm going to drag them into, let's see if I can drag them into here, into tests. Move. And then can I delete this test directory? Delete permanently. Yes, please. So now I've moved everything into this XNAT downloader directory, since this is where the all the code resides. And I'm just going to switch over to the terminal again here, because I just feel a little bit more comfortable typing out these things inside the terminal. Let's see. No, that's not what I wanted. I wonder how I can make the text bigger here. Well, hopefully it'll just be slightly visible enough. So I'll cd into XNAT downloader, then I'll cd into tests, and then I'm going to make another directory called data. I'm going to move everything.json into data. Then I'm also going to move central.config into data. Okay. I'm going to make a new file that's called test the CLI.py. Right? And since we're dealing with the Python package, every new directory that I make, if I want it to be recognized by the Python package, I need to make this init.py file. You can see it exists here. And it should exist inside this CLI directory as well. Okay, so we fulfilled the requirements. I'm going to put this up. We got test CLI. Okay. Don't show again. I think what I want to do here is import, well, I guess I'll put in a text string at the top to say what I'm doing. Like, say testing this basic functionality for XNet downloader. Don't know if that's actually helpful. Okay. And then from there, I'm going to import pytest. Okay. I forget if that's actually required or if I'm only using particular things from the actual pytest module that I need to put it inside the testing file. I'm going to assume that I'm going to use something from pytest. Okay. And the first thing that I want to type in here is I want to create a function that helps me test the CLI. So, oh yeah, that reminds me. I need to actually import or from period CLI import main, I believe. Oop, nope, not that autocomplete. Just want regular main. Because that is the function that is defined in here that runs everything. This main function. Okay. So I'm going to write a definition of a function that I'm going to repetitiously call test CLI. And this is going to need some special arguments so that it knows where to find the things, the data, the JSON file that I just put in here inside this data folder, and this non-test and this consensual config. So I'm gonna have to use some tricks to make it understand how to find and interpret those files in a way that I want. And I think I have an example. I can open this up. Okay. XNet downloader. I'm going to go back to issues here and move testing to pytest. So make test for run.py. That's the example that I wanted to look at. And that reminded me I had something else running in the background that we'll check on after I finish this thought. Okay. Okay. Just added everything here. Okay, so the special thing here is that for this other package, I want to test what it would do as if I had called the command line tool that I made for this package through the terminal, or say through this environment. So I used something that's from pytest that's called monkey patch. And I used monkey patch to overwrite what was in this argv section of or this RV attribute of the sys module. So that might have sounded a little bit wonky, but the sys module, and as far as I have learned it, one of the things it does with this argv attribute is it keeps track of arguments that have been passed into, say, a Python script. So if I type in like myscript.py space apples space oranges, argv would be a list that contains the name of the script as the first argument. So it would be my_script.py. Then it would contain apples as the second element of the list, and then oranges as the third element of the list. So by setting this to something that I want, then when I run this main command, it is as if I had called this command on the command line, even though I haven't left the Python environment at all. Okay. Are there any questions about that, since that's a bit of a mouthful? And apologies if you can't really hear me. Keep trying to speak up. Okay. So if there are no questions, I'll move on to the thing that we started out doing, was building this new, building out this new Docker image. So looks like it worked. And I think for now, we're just going to continue working on our current one. And then I'll test to make sure that the tests that we run work on this new Docker image, since I don't necessarily know if we do have everything installed that we need, or if I need to install anything else on this Docker container. So I'm going to continue working on this one and just make notes of anything that I install that I need in order to actually run the tests. So this item, or the thing that I need, is monkey patch. Okay. I can say def test CLI, and I guess that might be all that I need right now. Or I guess I'm gonna have this one be test test CLI bids for the bids data set that we have. Okay. And I'm also going to change where it writes out to. So I just want to write this out to the temp directory, honestly. That's where everything that's not permanent goes. And change this to the temp directory as well. Okay. So the first thing that I need to do is find where my data is at. So I need to have the credentials. So I'm just going to say cred. And for this, I'm also going to need another import OS. So I consider this, how I organize my imports is that I typically have 3 sections. The first section is anything that comes built into Python, like the OS package. The second section is anything that's a third-party install, such as pytest. And then the third section I have is anything that's local to the project that I'm working in. So that's generally how I organize my imports at the top there. Okay. So I need to figure out the path to this central.config file. So in order to do that, I'm going to say os.path.join, and I'm going to start out with the directory name of where this file is located. So I'm going to say that by typing in os.path.dir name. And this file has a special referent that I can refer to where this file is with the underscore underscore file underscore underscore. So that is a unique variable that will refer to this file. I don't know if it's defined if I just start up Python interpreter. No, it is not. So I think it's something that's particular to this. Yeah, you see it changed color as soon as I actually specified it accurately. So this is a special reserved name within within actual Python file scripts. And that refers to the path where this testcli.py is. Okay. So I want the dir name of that, the directory name of this file, which will put me inside the test directory. And within the test directory, I want to go within data. So let's type in data. And within there, I want the central.config. All right. And ideally, that should give me the string, the full string path to this central.config file. Next thing I want is the bids JSON file. So now I see that that's going to, I'm going to have to repeat myself a little bit. So let's abstract this code a little bit and say data dir equals os.path.join, the dir name of the file, and data. And now I can replace all of this with the data dir. And I can do the same here, os.path.join, data dir, and bids underscore test.json. Cool. Okay. And what I'm doing here is like the more overarching concept is within each test, with each test function that you write, there's generally 3 stages. First one is like setup. So set up the conditions for your test. The second stage is actually, running the function that you'd like to test. And the third stage is to compare the output with what you expected to get out. Okay. So that was the setup. And I think, well, no, I still have more setup to do. Setup as. And I'm going to look back on the example that I was looking at before. So you see I also had the some definitions here. Looks like I need to import sys. That'll be a tool that we use later. Or that will, more specifically, that's a module that we will make use of later. I'm going to import sys. I'm going to put that at the top because imports always are privileged and go at the top of whatever function or file that I use as a rule. Okay. But now the next step is to specify the arguments that I would like to pass into this main function. I guess somewhat indirectly, I should say, because I'm not going to actually pass in this to the main function. I think it's just called xnat downloader. So that would be the first argument, since that's what is named inside this entry point. Go back to test CLI. Okay. Now I'll do this. So I have xnat downloader. Then the first argument that I saw in this config.yaml was this -i. So I'm going to say -i. And did I make that separate? And yes, I did make those separate arguments. So those are two separate strings here between the high pass and the actual argument that I pass in the high pass. So I will replicate that organization here because I felt like that was important to do. Okay. So I have I, and I actually don't need the quotes there because I have the string defined in this variable. So that's called the bids JSON file. Okay. And then I have the config, which I'll specify as cred. And I'll close this list. And I think let's make sure that I didn't miss anything here. Okay. That looks all right for the args that I specified. Now the next step is to do that funky monkey patching. I'm just going to copy paste that into what I'm doing here. So I'm going to monkey patch the sys module, the argv attribute, which lists all of the whatever the arguments were passed in. And I'm going to replace it with this args variable, which contains this list. Okay. And then with this one, this just makes sure that it runs without error. And that is what I'm going to do as a first pass. Just to make sure that this runs without error. Import main. There we go. Not MAME. That's an aggressive function name. Okay. So I'm going to assert main is none. Now I've written, so I guess this is, and I guess this kind of combines steps, or the stages 2 and 3 of the testing framework, since the main with the parentheses is what actually calls the function, and the assert is none is what's testing to make sure that the output is what I expect. So in this case, I'm simply testing that the function runs and returns returns a successful status. Okay. So now I think I'm ready to set up the testing framework. So I've written a test, and now I want to let VS Code know that I've written the test. So I'm going to hit Control-Shift. No, never mind. That's not what I wanted. Is it Control-Alt-P? Let's see. How do I go into settings? I'm still not all the way comfortable with everything inside VS Code. Okay. See what happens if I type in pytest and search. Prompt to configure pytest enabled. I'm gonna click on pytest enabled, and we'll see test discovery failed. Test discovery failed. Let's take a look at our configuration settings. In the output or problems, let's just hop over this tab. Let's say show test output. Cannot import name main. Oh. Yes, I believe I think I missed something important up here. So it's from CLI.run import main. I think that should give us something a little bit better. Okay. Cool. So now I can see what happens when I hit this green arrow and see if the test actually runs or if it tells me that I did something poorly or what have you. The fact that it hasn't insta-failed is somewhat promising and gives me some confidence that it will succeed. Okay, so it did something. And if you remember, what I specified in this JSON file is that I wanted to write everything out to temp. So I'm just gonna hop over to my terminal here and cd into temp. And let's see what we have here. We have something that's called the sub-01 directory. That's /01 func. Cool. That was honestly more successful than I thought it was going to be. Then we have the source data here. Scans. Cool. Okay. So with this test in place, we can move on to the next part of this test, which is to make sure that that it actually downloaded the files that I wanted. So right now, I just test to make sure that it runs, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has the files that I wanted it to have. Yeah. And for that, I need to figure out where I put the, okay, yeah, so they're in here. They're inside the circle CI directory. So inside this directory, I have two text files. Something that's called a bids.txt, something that's called a non-bids.txt. And essentially what this is doing is that it's listing all the files that I have, or at least this is what I expect to come out from running that bids test. So these are all the files that I expect to exist. So let's, I might need to test, I might need to change these JSON files once again, just so that they're in unique directories. So I'm going to change that to bids. I'm going to change this one, or change this non-bids JSON to non-bids. Unimaginative, but informative. And when I want to move these text files to my data directory, okay. Yes, I would like to move that one. I would like to move this one. Okay. Okay. And now I want to be able to test that all those files exist. This comes into a form of file reading that I am not as comfortable with, since I've been spoiled with NumPy and pandas, to be able to read in files with quickly. So I'm going to have to do a little Google search here shortly. So I'm going to cd into project, I'm going to cd into XNAT downloader, tests, data. Just going to make this bigger for now. Hit clear, so we're at the top. All right, and I just want to read in, say, bids.txt, and I want to read it in as a set of files. Or a set of strings is what's going to be represented as. So Python, let's see, has something to do with like with open bids.txt as, just want to be able to read it as bids readable. No, that's a horrible name, but we'll carry on. And here is where I am. Yeah, this is where I'm lost. So I'm going to look up probably the most common thing that I Google when I'm opening up files without pandas or NumPy is how to read a text file Python. Let's see. I want to assign it to a variable, read lines. But if I want to read all the lines, loop it through, read the whole file, first 5 characters. Read returns the whole text. Okay. Let's see, what would I don't think that's going to do what I want. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to say br.read. I'm going to set that to bids files. Let's see what happens. What is bids files? It is one giant string. That's not what I wanted. What I want is a list of strings where each line gets its own entry. Okay, so back to the drawing board. So I want to say Python read text file as list of strings. This looks like what I want. That looks simple enough. You think eventually I would remember this, but I have not. Okay. So I'm going to hit up on the up arrow. Okay, with that, I'm going to say, let me paste, please. I copied this, right? Copy. Paste. Darn it. Okay. So bids files equals br dot read lines. Now let's see what I have. Bids files. That looks more right. I just don't want that trailing new line there. I wonder if there's an easy way. You may also like to strip. Okay. Let's see. Or we're stripping the new line character. Oh. Should have just read the Stack Overflow a little bit more. Okay, so yeah, this actually looks like the line that I want. Line.rstrip for line in F. Okay. Let's use that instead. So I'm going to go back up here. Bits files equals, but the pasting doesn't work. So let's use my goldfish memory. Okay. That is line.rstrip for line in BR. It's line.rstrip for line in BR. Okay, see if that works. Bids files. Awesome. Okay. Now there's just one other thing, since I wanted this to be a set, not a list. Let's see if I can just make it a set. I forget if comprehensions work on sets. And a set is represented with the curly brackets instead of the square brackets, which you might confuse with the dictionary, but since I'm not doing a key value pair, so I'm not specifying any keys, so this is just going to be represented as a set if it works. We'll see. Bids files. Let's see. Okay, yeah, that looks like maybe, right? Trying to think, is this a set? I want to make a set. Trying to think if this is a set of a list, or is this just a set? Okay, let's just, all right, I'm just gonna 1, 2, 1. Where does that evaluate to? So set 1, 2. Yep, okay. I was wondering if this square bracket that's inside this set open parens here meant that this was a set that contains one element that is a list, but I think that is impossible. So what this notation means within these square brackets, those are just the elements within the set. Because I guess I was imagining that these square brackets wouldn't be here. But it looks like that they're necessarily a part of the representation of set. Okay, cool stuff. We have read in this file, and now I want to do that inside the test underscore CLI function. Okay. So now I want to say the I'll call it the ground truth output file. Super long names, but I suppose in Python we just don't really care about super long names. Say os.path.join. Gonna say data dir, and within there I am going to specify the bids.text file. That looks good. And I suppose I'll do something that's probably not like super best practices. I'm gonna keep this assert main as none, because the main output of main, or the output of main as a function is that it just returns none if nothing bad happens. And the main output that I'm interested in is actually a side effect of main, where it's writing files to directory. So I'm going to keep this here, and then I'm just going to add additional tests to make sure that the output is what I want it to be. And I think I need to figure out a way to read in now the output files. So I guess I'll go back up here so I can specify with open ground truth output file as read, or reading as, so I'll specify this as ground truth. Then I'm going to copy what I did here. Control-Shift-C. Good enough. Put a B in there. And then this is changed to ground truth. And I will call these the ground truth bits files. Okay. So after this runs, assuming that main runs successfully, then I'm going to want to check for the output. And for this, the difficult part that I'm imagining is that for the files that are going to be output, they're going to exist in a certain directory, and they're going to exist, in this case, in the temp, for the /temp/bids directory. So I need to be able to essentially remove that part of the string from all of the file names that I find. So I'm going to replicate that in the terminal here. So we'll pull up the terminal, even though it's a bit tiny. Apologies. So clear out, cd into temp. I'm going to make a directory that's called bids. I'm going to move sub1 into bids. I'm going to move source data into bids. Okay. And what I would like to do, let's pretend that I'm just operating from the root directory here. I type in Python, and if I want to grab a bunch of files, the library that we use is called glob. So especially the glob function from the glob module, since that embedded repetition is not just a habit that I have. Import from glob, import glob. So I have glob, and what do I want to grab with glob? I want to grab everything that's from within temp within bids. Yeah, I think that's and then everything. Yeah, so I'm going to call that files. If I look at files, ooh, okay, so I need to have like double star maybe. Files, no. Double star / double star. Files. Still not enough. / double star. Oop, need to actually end. What did I do wrong? Oh, net, of course. Okay. Oop. Oh, come on. So I'll look at the files. I feel like there has to be a better way. Well, anyways, I'm just going to keep adding on more. Glob recursively. I'm just going to Google it. Glob recursive Python. Path name. Okay, recursive is a parameter that I can pass in. I'm going to use that. Okay. So bids anything and recursive equals true. No. Oh, maybe this is a Python 3 thing. Oh, disappointed. What do I have? Do I have access to anything like that in Python 2? No. Okay. Yeah, so I guess another benefit that would come from Python 3. Okay, the glob, trees file names. Okay. 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 All right. Never mind, I'm going to have to stick with my strategy of all of the asterisks. Remove that quotation mark. Let's see, what do we got here? Oh man, this is going to be long. Okay. We'll do it. Just going to do a few more. Work. Or does that only look for things that are that deep now? Oh no, it's going to be. So now it necessarily looks for files that are this deep. I didn't think Python 2 was going to be this limiting for me. All right. Let's take a look back. Module fmatch.
I'm going to interrupt here real quick just to let you know that my battery is running low.
Okay.
I need to disconnect and just catch the rest of it on the video whenever you upload that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for attending, and thanks for listening as much as you could.
Yeah, as much as I could. Hard to hear over here. I'm definitely going to watch the video and try to get as much out of it because there's a lot of little things I missed along the way. I didn't want to slow down by asking to re-clarify every point.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, please do let me know when you get the video up. I'm going to watch that.
Yeah, I will.
Thank you, James.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Trevor.
You see, Trevor?
Yeah, I'm going to log off now. I'm at 2 minutes, so
right.
Bye.
See you, Trevor.
See you.
Okay. Let's see. I want to be able to match all of the files. I didn't think that, yeah. Python 2. Well, maybe I don't see the examples having the double asterisks. So maybe shell style wildcards. Well, let's see. If I just have the single asterisk, does that change anything? It still only appears to grab the daikon. Okay. Maybe I need to have a more directed query on recursively find files Python 2.7. Folder. Okay, yep, looks like I need to use this potential again. I think maybe that will get me what I want. Let's see what this does for me. All right, no, I have to type it out manually. I'm not going to remember all that. I'm just going to put these side by side. I'm going to say import fn match, import OS. I'm going to say output files equals an empty list. And I'll say for, say as root, dir names, file names, and os dot walk, say temp bids as the base directory. For file name in fn match dot filter file names. I think I literally want any file name with any extension. See if I live to eat those words. And that with the quotes. And then I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll say output files dot append os dot path dot join root file name and then other parens. Okay. That looks like it. Okay, so let's see output files. Okay, that looks better. What if you can append to a set? So I'd still like this to be a set. So 1, 2, set of 1 and 2 equals my set. So my set can I append? Has no attribute append. Okay. Then yeah, I'll just use I'll keep it up with as a list. Didn't mean to do that. Copy test CLI and make sure all output files exist. Okay. That formatted correctly. Then out put files equals nothing. And then I want to make sure I guess now I need to remove that temp bids from all of those names. So I have the output files, and I want to say file lstrip temp bids from all those output file names, or no, sorry, doing list comprehension, lstrip for file in output files. See, does that do what I want? Almost what I want. Is lstrip temp bids / maybe that will do exactly. No, still no. I wonder why it's getting rid of the extra S there. I just want to lstrip the temp and the bids. It's also getting rid of that extra S. Okay, so I guess I don't quite understand how lstrip works. Let's see. Removes any leading characters. What if I want a particular sequence? Okay. So I don't want just any of those characters to be removed. I want that specific order of characters to remove. Remove substring from start, I suppose. I guess I could refer to it by an index, but okay. So I guess I need to question's already been answered here. Python 3.9. Okay. So let's try that strategy out. Moving a prefix from a string. So I want file, and they don't need to check for the prefix since I know that it exists for all of them. So I want file, len, temp, beds, continuation. Okay, let's see what that does. Now it looks like it does what I want it to. A little bit weird looking, but I'll take it. For now. Eventually we might need to refactor to make this look better. Files, stripped. If I can say no prefix. No prefix. Okay. Then actually I can do like that set as well. Okay. And I guess what I actually want to test to see if the sets are identical. Test if sets are equal. Maybe I can just do it with the double equal sign. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then, if that does what I want it to do, then I should be able to assert that output files no prefix is equal to ground truth bits files. Okay. Now we'll run this test again to see if it works. Do you have any questions so far, Zoheb?
No, I think I'm following James.
Okay. Looks like this one failed. Let's see why it failed. So I'm going to step down over here. And I'm going to click on the debug button instead. So we'll start to run this test through the debugger. Oh, yeah, that would probably do it. That problem, I didn't import FN match. That seems reasonable. Okay. Import FN match. Let's try running this again. Didn't even get a chance to test it out. Let's see if this one succeeds. If it does, fine, we'll move on. If it didn't, yeah, then we'd be able to look at the debug output a little bit more. That's okay. Yeah. So now, I guess this is also something that could probably use a little bit of a immediate refactoring. So I don't have to duplicate everything, but I'm going to take, in the interest of time, I'm going to copy paste. And I'm going to call this one the non-bids function. And we just need to change up a couple things here. So this will be the non-bids test.json. And this will be the non-bids.text. And that stays the same. I'm going to say the ground truth non-bids files. So I'll call this the non-bids JSON. Okay, that'll be set. That'll be the same. This will be in the non-bids directory if I specified it as such inside this JSON file, non-bids. Okay. And change that to non-bids. Then ground truth non-bids files. Okay. And I'll pretend this works. Let's just try it out. Let's actually run it. Okay, yeah, looks like it's running. And then I think that this test should take a little bit longer since it has, our session had to have ended by now, right? So let's log in, okay. This session will take longer if it doesn't fail. Because there is multiple sessions to download from. So I have 3 sessions here that have different names, and they are just named to test some of the different circumstances in which we've seen the non-bids organized files stored on XNAT. And these are just all some example files from there. Okay. And this testing is not perfect. What would be better? Well, it's not perfect in a variety of ways, but one of the ways that I see as being an immediate problem is every time I run these tests, the files are going to be written out to their respective directories, whether it be bids or non-bids. So if you ran the test once, changed the code, and ran the tests again, even if main didn't actually download all the files, but it completed successfully, quote unquote, then the results from the previous run would still be in here. So I think that's something that we can, that I can immediately resolve through a cleanup and deleting that directory that I made. Okay. So let's Python 2 delete directory recursively. that should work. I'll use that. Let's have a little cleanup step here. This will point to temp bids, util. And then cleanup, temp, non-bids. Okay. Okay. So let's run all the tests now. And then finally, I guess not finally, but I think the last thing that I wanted to do was represent this testing framework inside the Circle CI file. So let's take a look at this config. Let's config it. Okay. So I suppose instead of all of this nonsense, all right, looks like all the tests pass. Okay, awesome. So we have passing tests that at least fulfill some basic notion of everything working. And I guess the super duper check is if I look inside. No. Oops. And if I look inside temp, I shouldn't see bids or non-bids in here, which I do not. Okay. So the cleanup works as well. And all of that is good. Good, 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 good. Let's close up some of these files here. I'm getting a little bit crowded. So test bid, test bids. Okay, so I don't need to check for outputs because I'm now doing that as a part of the tests. So I guess the only negative thing of doing it this way is I won't be able to manually check on the output files from continuous integration. Since they'll be uploaded to the Circle CI interface, and I'll be able to download like the individual DICOM files or the individual output Nifty files. I think this trade-off is worth it since now you have the ability to run the tests locally and just check on those files yourselves locally. So I'll take that as a reasonable trade-off. Okay. And then the other piece of knowledge that I need to figure out is how to run the tests individually through the command line. Okay. So I need to figure out how do I call an individual test that I want to run. And I know that is a fairly common use case, so I should be able to find an answer for that with relatively little effort. Pytest, run, single test. That'll completes for me. Maybe because I've searched for it before. What? To run test run file. Okay. This seems reasonable. Let's just try it locally inside here. Make sure that works. New terminal. So I want pytest, xnet downloader, test, test CLI, and I want k to be test CLI bids. And will that do what I want? Cool. Looks like that's doing what I want. Let's make this big. Make this a little bit smaller. And for test bids, load the Docker image, then I want to test it. So now I'm going to specify, awesome, okay. So I'm going to redefine the entry point to this Docker image. And let's see. I think if I just specify the entry point as, I'll put it down here. Entry point, let's see, where's, which bash? So bin bash, okay. So I'm just gonna start up a bash shell inside this Docker inside this Docker image when it spins up a container. And then I, instead of all of this junk, I guess I still want that. I'm going to say what I put down here. Except I need to specify the full qualified path. Control-Shift-C. No, that's not what I wanted. Let me copy. Okay. Or no. Will this work for me? Because I also need to, what's done implicitly here is that the conda environment is also activated. So I still want that to happen for me. Let's look back in the Docker file to see where do I define, yeah, so I still define the entry point. That's that. So I do have, well, let's see. I wonder if I can make it. What can I do? So I want to be able to activate the conda environment and run the test for that particular thing that I want. So I need everything at least up to there, but I need it to actually run. If I specify bash C, all right, that's a little bit verbose. Okay. I don't need to make this directory anymore either. Okay. Or no, this won't even be, pytest is not installed on the original one. Should I just bite the bullet and install pytest on the original Docker file? Or when does it? Or how can I test it? I guess this was poor organization on my part on the bad separation of concerns of the thing that I want to test versus like the thing that I want to deploy and the thing that I want to develop on. So I think I might just conflate the concept of the thing that I want to test and the thing that I want to run in production, quote unquote. So to do that, I would need to change how I install this. So I copy it, content init, and I pip install this project. And I want to add in the modifier test as well. Okay.
Oh, hey, James.
Yeah.
In the config.yaml file, do you also need to add in, oh wait, sorry, right where you were before.
Yeah.
The,
I?
I think it was a little bit.
Where am I?
Where you had the
py.test. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, do you need to add an and after the activate neuro?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I mean, yeah, if this syntax works, which I'm not 100% confident yet. Okay. So if I create that and if I make it so that I can, where does that go? It's in here. It's in make the Docker file. And if I install this as a test, okay, I'll save that. Then I'll go back down here. And then I'll say scripts. I need to do bash scripts, build Docker file. I'm supposed to give it a name that I would remember. App. Okay. App. And I'm going to put that into Docker file, even though it's just changing one little thing. Okay. I'll say Docker build tag. This to be JD Kent. XNet downloader. Actually call this one latest. I don't need to specify the file since it's the default Docker file. Then this. Okay. Yeah, so I'll wait for that to finish. I'll be able to actually test whether or not this command would work. But let's just assume that this command works, and I'll change the other location in which, reconnect now, please. I'll change the other location. Non-bids. Okay. I guess I don't even need that really. I guess I could still upload the artifacts if I mounted the volume that would locate the directory. But I haven't used the artifacts at all, so I'm going to deem it unnecessary. Okay, and instead of this one, I want to run the test non-bids. And we don't need to check for outputs. And I don't need to store these artifacts. Did I take that off up there too? Yeah, okay. Oh yes, and I needed to change this to home coder project. I need to change this one to home coder project. Okay. Looks like this is installing. Awesome. All right. Now the cool thing is that I can copy paste this command. I don't know why that says remove false. Don't want that to be there. Okay. I can copy paste this and see if it works. This was for the test. CLI bits. Okay. Let's try. I did not spell entry point right. To the beginning. Control A. Entry point. Bin bash can execute binary file. Okay. I think I was expecting to see that in some level. I forgot. How do I get around it? I think if I just do this, it's a little bit awkward looking, but that -c is being passed to bash itself. Bum, 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 bum. Hopefully this works. Cool. All right. So I need to spell entry point right. Let's need to spell entry point right here as well. Okay. Save the file. Please reconnect so I can save the file. Okay. Okay. Now, since I didn't connect like my Git credentials or anything to this VS Code running instance, I'm going to have to do all my commits and such locally. Okay. Let's see, what's my Git status? What all did I change? I did a decent amount of stuff. Okay. So git remove dot circle ci bids, git remove non-bids, git remove test. Remove test. Okay. Remove our tests. Okay. And git add. So if I look at git status now, it should say like I deleted a bunch of stuff. Okay. Then if I do git add, let's see, tests, data. Now let's see what it does. Yep, it was smart enough to know that I just moved the files. Okay. So I'm going to commit this and say move all testing files to, or testing, move all test data files to the same directory. Okay. Then take its status again, see what else we got to change. Okay. Then I guess the next one that I could do is git add scripts, build Docker file, git add Docker file, git add Docker file develop. That also seems like a cohesive group of files that fit into one single commit message. Let's see. Yeah, all right, yeah. It's going to be a little bit, the history is not going to make complete sense in this order, since I should have added the setup.py file. So I created the extra installs first. That's what we did first. Anyways, I guess, yeah, this just shows to have a habit of committing as you go, as opposed to reconstructing the history after the fact. Okay. I guess, yeah, I did one install. Install test requirements. Yes, or is it really just, yeah, just like install pytest and Docker images. That's pretty much all I did. And git add setup.py, commit, add testing install. Okay. Say git status, config, okay. And git add xnet downloader tests init and test git commit add test to xnet downloader. What have we got? Then git add dot circle ci config git commit. Well, I think there's one thing that I want to do before I commit that thing. I do have a circle ci like installed, and it has like a validate dot circle ci config. I think that's it. Nah. I forget how to use it. Validate config. Yeah, so this has the installation commands here that I am looking for. Validate. Okay, so that's the command that I want. It's valid. Okay. Now that I'm sure that's valid and I won't run into, at least very, I won't run into certain errors when I try to get this to run on continuous integration. Okay. Git commit. what I want is to do. Okay. PyTest. Circles, yeah. Okay. So git log, it should have all of these commit messages. Awesome. Okay. And then git branch, I should be on the add pytest branch. And git remote v should be pushing to my fork. So git push origin add pytest. And let's see, and I think, yeah, I covered all the steps here. Let's take a look. Compare and pull request. And pytest. Okay. I guess this is it's more like a maintenance task. I didn't add any functionality or anything. So I'll say test using pytest. This will fix issue number 39. So say it fixes number 39. Okay. Changes, testing. I guess it really just adds a testing framework. This adds pytest as the testing framework. I suppose I'll just be brief. Create the pull request. And then it might already be running on CircleCI under my name. So if I hop over to CircleCI, it's already auto-completes to let's see if it loads. Please load. Okay. That looks like it started the build. All right, I think this video is long enough. I'm not going to cover whether it fails or not on CircleCI. I'll do that offline. But we put together a lot of parts today.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
definitely.
that kind of gives like an overview of like the entire process of adding or changing code and touching a lot of different pieces to make everything work together. I guess there's maybe just Trevor already knows this, but the other useful thing, the reason that we made these tests in the first place is so that we could go and debug and step into main. So if I could step into this, then you can figure out how all of the messy guts happen. And that will provide the framework to understand how to change and add logging to the code base. Right. Other than that, that's everything. That is everything that I wanted to cover. Woo. All right, so yeah, demoed some Googling and demoed some lots of Googling and not succeeding at things and having some unexpected successes. I guess like adding pytest was honestly a bit easier than I expected it would be. All right, yeah, but you feel like that you understood everything and kind of followed through?
Yeah, I
Feel
think
like it was boring for you.
no, I mean it's just I think like like I understood the logic behind everything. But probably if I had to write my own tests, I would probably have to like learn it just through experience.
Yeah, staring at that blank file and then like I create something from this blank file.
Yep.
So hopefully see an example of like we didn't have we created a new file and there's nothing in here before, but we filled it up with the necessary components.
Yep. Yep. That's definitely a good starting point, I think, so that I'm not just like, where do I start?
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully this helps out with that and gives you some idea on how something comes into existence. And I guess I'll add this at the end. This is just how I'm doing it. It doesn't necessarily mean this is like all the best practices and everything are being adhered to, but because they're not. But this is it gets something that works, and for most people that's good enough. Right, then am I still recording? Stop recording.